All right. So welcome everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm super excited to see everybody out and about. I'm really excited to get started and dig into this subject matter with our special guest. But before we do that, I do just want to go over a couple real quick housekeeping items. If you've joined us for a previous chat anytime in the last couple of weeks, this will all be kind of old hat to you. So just sit tight for about a minute or so, and then you'll be back to the fresh information. Like all our events, this event today is entirely about you. It's about our attendees, and we want to make sure that you get as much out of today as we put into it. So to that end, we highly, highly, highly encourage participation. You are more than welcome to turn your cameras on, come off mute. The one thing I will flag for you is that you will show up on the live recording of today's session if you do come off mute to participate. So if you have any kind of privacy concerns, not a problem, you can still participate. And we highly encourage you to do that by typing any questions, comments, anything like that into the Zoom group chat. That way you can still participate without having to worry about any kind of privacy concerns. If you have a question and you would like it raised anonymously for whatever reason, not a problem. Just make sure that you select my name from the dropdown in the Zoom group chat. Instead of sending it to everyone, you'll send it to Meg Alexander. Oh, and I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself. My name's Meg. I'm going to be your host today, and I'm part of the marketing team here at PowerToFly. I am just really excited to jump into this subject matter, guys. You all wrote in with some really great questions. So just to keep going through our housekeeping and dive right in, this session is being recorded. So whether you are only able to spend 5 minutes with us, or you spend the full 60, or you registered and didn't have a chance to join with us today, everyone who registered for today's event will be getting an email within 1 to 2 business days with the link to rewatch this recording. Now that link is always free, and you are more than welcome to share it with other people, especially if you hear something today that you want to share with maybe a friend or a coworker or whatever. If you can't wait that long, no problem. You are also more than welcome to check out the live stream, which is on our YouTube channel. So if you want to keep up with us on social, like it says there at the bottom, we are at PowerToFly on basically every social media platform, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel to get alerts about events like today. And it's really kind of nice because that enables you to check out what's happening without missing maybe something that the subject matter that you should have registered for that would really intrigue you and really interest you. To that end, as you are watching and moving along today, because it's all being recorded, don't worry about taking notes. Don't worry about, hey, could you repeat that reference or repeat that website that you just mentioned or something, because you can always go back and rewatch the recording. We will, as we go through the questions, I will share in a couple minutes the slides of our questions that you all had submitted prior to today's session. Thank you for submitting those. We have condensed all of the questions, removed redundant stuff, and moved it into more of like a conversational format. So to that end, if you submitted a question and you don't see it on the list of questions that I'm about to show, and you really want the answer to that question, we give priority to the people that are attending today's session. So if you have a question that you want answered, or you have a comment that you'd like to raise, please, please, please feel free to do so. If you are not actively speaking, I'm going to suggest highly that you put yourself on mute. I will be doing the same so that nobody can hear the 2 bulldogs snoring right under my desk. That is not to say that you are not welcome to participate. You are. I am very open to interruptions because I get paid to fill the silence. So please feel free to interrupt me if I'm speaking. But if Misty or one of our other guests is talking or asking a question or voicing a comment, please just use your best judgment. Try not to crosstalk, and we will try not to interrupt each other in that way. I know it can be rough with lag times and things, but just sort of use your best judgment. If I do mute you at any point during today's session, that's not a rebuke. It's not to say that you can't participate. It's just to make sure that the audio quality still stays clear for everybody else on the recording, as well as everybody attending today. Yeah, with that, we will get started, and I will introduce you to our speaker. So I would love to introduce Misty. She is a true data nerd and has worked in data engineering, technical product management, and corpus analytics. With an expertise in designing whip-smart, elegant solutions, she is able to deliver the data the customer wants at the speed and scale the company needs. Architecting with data privacy in mind, Misty has developed systems that are CCPA, GDPR, and PII compliant. So Misty is part of the team at VideoAmp, and she is here to join us today. Thank you so much for joining us, Misty.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Before we get started and talk a little bit about VideoAmp, is there anything that you'd like to add to that introduction, Misty?
I think you've done a great job.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so the one thing I do want to call out here, hold on, let me switch my slide. There we go. Is that VideoAmp is part of the PowerToFly family of client companies, and they are hiring. So I'm going to throw a link up into the Zoom chat here in just a minute. And what I want you all to know is that as you check out, I'm going to encourage you to go check out their company page. The link that I'm going to provide will allow you to see, get more information about VideoAmp and who they are as a company. You can also check out their open roles, which is really awesome. But there's going to be a pink button at the top, I believe top right-hand corner of that screen that says follow. If you don't currently follow VideoAmp and you are interested in working for them, with them, or to just get more information about them, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you click that follow button. It is a great way to stay engaged with VideoAmp. It'll alert you when they post new roles. So especially if you're interested in working for them but don't see anything currently listed that would suit you, that is like, that little button puts you on their follow network and serves as kind of your inside information about VideoAmp so that you find out when they post new roles without having to keep checking back to their company page. And it also tells you when they're going to participate in events like today, events like our virtual career fair, upcoming mini summits, all that kind of good stuff. So I definitely, like I said, highly recommend that you follow VideoAmp if you're interested in working with them. And joining that follow network also tells VideoAmp the same thing. It tells them that you are interested in them as a company, and so it helps kind of put you head and shoulders above the rest when you do go to apply to a role at VideoAmp. Like I said, I'll put that link into the chat here in just a minute. So as we get going, like I said, I was going to show you our slides with our questions. So if you are one of our more type A joiners and would like to have kind of a roadmap to where the conversation's headed today, not a problem. Just feel free to take a screen grab right now. We've got 2 more pages like this, so I'll give you a couple seconds here to take your screen grabs, and then we'll rotate through the other 2 pages and then get started with our first round of questions. Take your screenshots if you'd like. Don't feel the need to, like I said, no pressure if you don't want to. Here's our next round, our next slide of questions. You can always go back and review this later. It just kind of gives you a roadmap, so that way if you have a question that maybe we haven't touched on yet, I'm going to go to the next slide. That way you can kind of see maybe that question that you're going to ask is going to be touched on later, or maybe it would be a great time to introduce that question later as kind of a companion to a question or a subject that we're already going to touch on. So as we get started here, Misty does have 2 slides that we're going to kind of briefly go through to give you a baseline of information on the subject that she's going to discuss today, breaking that cycle of overcommitting. So Misty, take it away.
So just to open, like, we've all been there, right? Like, we hear something and maybe it's a wild request with like a really compressed timeline. Maybe it's just something like, hey, do you want to go out tonight? And all you've been doing is working. You're like, no, I don't want to go out. But you say, yes, I'd love to go out. And like in your mind, you're screaming inside, being like, why did I say yes? I meant no. But no. So here you are, you've committed and you keep committing. I was addicted to saying yes. I said yes to I had 3 jobs at one point in my life because I couldn't say no. People would offer me jobs, be like, yeah, I can work that in. I was working like 18 hours a day. So it was just untenable. I had to learn to edit my life a little bit. And that meant at work, it meant at home. And really, in order to do that, I had to realize that my relationship with the word no had to change. I was afraid to say no. I was afraid to admit that like I couldn't get something done, or I didn't feel like hanging out with a friend, even though I love my friends. I want to hang with them. Sometimes I really want to sleep. That's a good choice to rest. I'm old. It was before we talked about self-care. And I still had to manage those feelings and say like, if I go, I'm liable to make everyone have a really grumpy time because I am just a sourpuss today. I'm like a grumpy guest and I need to stop. So enter in my change with my relationship with no. I needed to say no, but no, maybe this. And so what I really realized is that I needed to offer a no, like people offer constructive criticism, you know, no with some like helpful comments, like, I'm not shutting you down. I'm not rejecting this. What I'm trying to do is pivot towards something that's more useful than just like, no. Like, you don't want to be the grumpy cat that just like throws up the no and like rolls off, you know? So here's the constructive no. It's basically like no with a modifier. And your modifiers are all around alternatives, expectations, and explanations. So in alternatives, basically offering an alternative lets you negotiate what you really want out of this, right? Do you want a different time? Do you want a different option? Maybe is this just too much responsibility for one person to take on? I've found that like by saying like, hey, I can commit to this part of the project, but I think we'll need another engineer to do this part of the project because there's just too much work for two people to adequately do together. That helped other people I was working with manage and budget time effectively and produce stronger outcomes. So there's also the expectations modifier, right? If I'm not able to make a deadline and I'm just saying yes, 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 I'm ending up with a situation where I'm now losing trust with people because I'm not actually delivering when I say I will, or I'm delivering something shoddy that's not the work that I'm capable of doing because I'm rushing. You know, sure, we have to like sometimes pull it in. Things do have deadlines, but rather than saying, hey, I'm totally going to get everything done by this deadline, you can talk with someone like, what's the MVP for this date? And talking about what's realistic for that in a way that like people aren't dying, you know, like, sure, every now and again, an all-nighter, totally okay. But you can't live your life based off of all-nighters and too much coffee. Okay, maybe too much coffee, but that's just because it's tasty. Okay, so explanations. I found that contextualizing why I was saying no was actually giving other people feedback about what I needed to negotiate with, and it helped frame future conversations, right? Like, I'm not shutting you down forever. It might just be like not a good time. Maybe I'm not able to take on this new project when I'm consulting because I already have 2 other large projects, but I would love to work with that person in the future. Those things. So by contextualizing why I'm saying no in a short and sweet way, and that's key here. Keep it short and sweet. If your explanations are too long and like people don't really want your whole thought process about how you got to the no, because it's just too much for them to hang on to, and it's not directed at them in some sort of like meaningful way. If you keep it short and sweet, like, I would love to work with you, but I'm really overwhelmed with some other projects right now. Or maybe instead of overwhelmed, you say, in order to devote full time to your current clients, you can't take on any more. Maybe around this date, your project should be ending and you're going to be more available. And that gives them kind of a clue. And it also says something about you, like, you're not willing to take on more work than you can handle. You're not willing to do a bad job. You want to succeed for your clients. Okay. I think there's not anything about these slides specifically. I'm going to pop off to the next one. So in order to also use the constructive no, right, we have to evaluate when to say it. And I have 4 questions that kind of help me. How excited am I about this, right? Like, if I'm not excited about going out, I'm going to ruin everyone's time. If I'm not engaged with a project, how will I drive it forward effectively? Like, people know when you dial stuff in. Like, how many times have you been there and like you can feel it and then you're upset, like somebody's not engaging with you, or like you believe in this project and somebody's just like totally phoning it in and it hurts. It's frustrating. the other one is like, what's my bandwidth? Like, even I might be totally jazzed and pumped about something. If I don't have the energy, I can't do it. You know, I can't be the peak performer. I can't be fun if I don't have the time to be. Like, I don't want to schedule dinner with somebody and then be like looking at my clock and be like, I got to go to this other thing. Like, that's horrible. And also, like, at work, you're burning yourself out, and it's not sustainable. So that side of the chart is all about you. But then here's the other side of the other two questions are really all about the project or the event or whatever it is that you could potentially say yes or no to. Is this the best approach? Like, is this the thing that I want to be committing to? And if not, like, you can say not right now and then just iterate on the idea. You know, if it's a project, maybe it doesn't have the right requirements yet. If it's, you know, even going out to dinner with somebody, maybe it's not the right time. Maybe you need to like push back for coffee because you're just exhausted, even though you want to hang out with them. Right now, I guess we can't see much of anybody, but you know, in the non-COVID world, which will happen one day, all these things will be true. And plus, do you know how many engagements we're all going to have? Whew, we are going to be busy. And then also, what's the chance of success of something? You know, you can pull out a hat trick every now and again, you know, really go aces all the way, even though you're killing yourself. But what really do you want to commit to? Do you want to commit to things that have a low likelihood of succeeding or a high likelihood? You want to set yourself up for success and not failure, because that also goes to your track record, right? Like, oh, I meant to see you, but then I canceled at the last minute. I meant to complete this project on time, but I failed. You know, all of these things like grow or diminish your trust with the people that you're committing to, because everything that we say yes to is a commitment, and this is how we're building our trust. And that's so critical, because I don't know, that's just like a big thing for me. Okay, do those slides sound good? Do we want to just launch into these awesome questions? I was super jazzed when I saw these.
It sounds amazing to me. Whitley had her hand raised. Whitley, do you have a question that you'd like to ask?
Yes, sorry, it's just hard to type because I have to switch the phone over and everything. The question that I had was, if you've committed to something and another project comes up and you're excited about it and it's something that's a good opportunity, how do you, I guess, have the conversation or change the expectations of something that you've already committed to that maybe isn't giving you like the excitement that you had, or like the actual goals or even the expectations that were initially set for it? So how do you adjust, I guess, your schedule and everything?
Yeah, so basically what I'm hearing is you're talking about the potential walk back. Is that like you're trying to walk back the yes?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's some things. I only really walk back in a few situations just because that's my personality. So that's because like I'm a ride or die commit. Once I've committed to some, by the way, it takes me forever to get me to commit now. Now that I've learned no is like my homie, like we're always together. So when you have to walk back something, what you're doing is you have to assess, did something about the first project that you committed to change, right? Like, and is this second opportunity like one in a lifetime, right? Like, if it's like a one in a lifetime deal, or like super rare, or like, hey, I just got free concert tickets to this amazing sold out show, I would love to catch up and have coffee with you. Can we do it Thursday? You know, like you have to weigh those things in conjunction, and also who you're talking with. Like if it's a friend, they will likely understand the walk back about having to reframe a commitment. But if you're talking with a client, it's a lot harder, or a customer, right? You can't say like, hey, this other company who's going to spend way more money with me is coming by. I know that I talked to you first, but so like what you need to do when you're doing that sort of situation is you need to assess like what you've already committed to with them and if anything has changed in that level of commitment with them. It really gets into a large gray area. I wish I could give you a like go for it. But I think right now is like you're talking about politics and navigating that can be like very difficult because you also have to allow them to save face and save face in the relationship. Like it's really relationship management there. This might be one of the few times that I would say it's okay to pull that all-nighter, you know, and like stress your bandwidth out if you really feel like this other commitment is that strong. But I would work on navigating the hours that you're going to spend on the smaller project so that you can give more to the larger project and just renegotiate that time management and just be upfront and clear. Like, hey, this project is super valuable and I'm really interested, but I'm only able to spend 30% of the team's time on this. You know, and the more upfront you are with them, it's better.
Awesome. Thank you for that explanation. Whitley, does that answer your question?
That did. That was an excellent answer.
Awesome. And I think that's a really good way to think of it, is that relationship management, because that works in both a professional capacity and a personal capacity. Because there are some people that if you were to tell them like, I got Beyonce tickets and I'm sorry, I know we were supposed to go to dinner, but could we reschedule? And they'll be like, go, have fun, take pictures, tell me everything. And then there's other people that would take that really personally, right? So knowing how to manage that relationship so that it proceeds as you know, hopefully it's on that course to have a good relationship and continue in a good direction. Knowing what you need to do and kind of the give and take that needs to happen so that either the professional relationship or the personal relationship can kind of stay on track. I think that's really great. Thank you for that. All right, so I want to make sure that we encourage everybody, if they have questions just like Whitley, you are more than welcome to use the raise your hand function in case you don't want to interrupt what's currently being said and want to make sure you get your spot in line. Or you, like I said, if I'm talking, please feel free to interrupt. So with that in mind, we're going to go back to our slides and get us to our next question round here. Let me make sure I'm directing us to the right one. All right, so this next question that was written in, this person asked, do you use different qualifications for commitments in your home life versus your work life? So this kind of relates to what we were talking about, right? Is that like relationship management? If you have anything else that you'd like to add there, great. If you don't have anything else you want to touch on this, we can keep going to the next question.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is that I use slightly different questions, but all around the same basic thing. That it keeps it simple for me. And you have to remember, like, when you commit to something, that's what builds trust with people.
That's a very good point, is that, you know, how you, yes, there may be the room or the good reasoning behind, you know, changing that no to yes or changing that yes to no at the last minute, or, you know, after you've committed one way or the other. But, you know, how much of that goodwill are you maybe squandering, or how much, you know, how much bend does that relationship really have?
Yeah.
Okay. So going to our next question, this person wrote, how do you say no without feeling like you're making a mistake about your career, e.g. your boss asks you to pick up more work, or without feeling guilt, for example, mom guilt, when trying to find that work and home life balance?
Yeah, this really resonates me because we all get questions in our career like, hey, can you take care of this? And also as a mom, working mom, you're just like, how do I manage all these things and still do like make these cookies for this like bake sale tomorrow? That's like, my husband loves to sign me up for bake sales. I think he just likes runoff cookies. Anyhow, so when you're talking to your boss about saying no, it depends on what the no is and how you have to frame it. One of the things that I do with my current boss, who's lovely, is he'll tell us, like, when we talk in our one-on-ones, hey, what project are you, what projects are next as we're going through the line. So we're planning out our work in sprints. And, he'll list like 3. He's like, which ones are you most interested in? He's like, I was thinking of this one for you. And I'll be like, I really like this other project more because it aligns more with my personal interests and my interest for how I like to develop my career. I was like, I'll work on the other one if there's no one else and it's a top priority. But my personal preference is for projects more like B and C. And that way it gives him an idea of how I want to direct my career and what I want for my goals. But it also says, like, hey, I'm willing to be the team player here if I'm the engineer that you need for this other project. And so it's about a negotiation. And you have the agency to negotiate with an employer. Like, and lean on them kind of in a way to say, like, hey, I don't have the bandwidth right now because of the other projects you've asked me to. Is this priority more important than the other priority? By articulating these things to the people that we're working with, we're allowing them to also make decisions with us. And that's like a huge, huge thing, because if we keep this stuff all silent, they don't know, they can't help us, and then we get more frazzled and irritated. And like, I know when I'm frazzled and irritated, I'm not especially pleasant to be with. I feel like when I work with people, the more that I can tell them about what my expectations are and how well my workflow is going, the better that we can both produce a great project together. Because that's really what we're all trying to do, is do good things together. In terms of mom guilt, when you have to say no to something, here's how I feel guilty sometimes. Like, I'm not going to say I don't, because that's a lie. I do feel guilty. But I also think, like, I'm never going to feel like I should, when I'm old and gray, I'm never going to think back like, man, I'm really glad I missed that recital. Like, I'm really glad I didn't do that thing for my kid. I'm never going to say that, like, never. So what I try to do is, when I'm saying, like, there's a mom thing that comes up in my life, is like, hey, I really want to eat dinner with my kids like 3 nights a week. So I'm going to shift my hours Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so they're a lot earlier. Is that cool with everybody? And it's about managing that expectation, offering an alternative where that everyone gets to win. When you're saying no and you're offering an alternative, try and find one that, like, everyone gets a little bit of the win.
I love that. I love that as a solution, to, kind of offer up that alternative, because then instead of really, even if you do have to say no to something, especially something for work, it makes it shows that you're trying to be flexible. You're trying to, to meet those demands or those deadlines for things. But it also shows that, like, you have priorities, you are setting that boundary, or you're setting those priorities and you're making it clear. And that these are, pretty unassailable things to be wanting. Like, I want to actually see my family 3 nights a week. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I hear the same thing from the dads too. So, like, I don't want to just say that there's just mom guilt out there. Like, I know that the dads are having just as big of a thing as the moms. So shout out to all my dads too.
Now, just out of curiosity, and again, full disclosure, I'm not a parent, I have a bunch of, like, 4-legged creatures that depend on me to stay alive. Is there ever a situation, or is there a point where that transparency becomes maybe a bit of an overshare? Like a line that you try and not to cross when you're trying to make those, like, hey, I'd like to be doing fill in the blank. Can I, make this accommodation, or, change this around with the scheduling deadline? Or is it really one of those situations that you should be transparent about like, hey, these are the demands on my time from a personal standpoint that are going to, impact my work.
I think maybe they don't need all the nitty gritty, but like knowing that your kid has a recital, which means like that's not really a negotiable time. Like you can't change when that recital is, versus like maybe dinner, you're going to push back an hour. You can push it back maybe half an hour, depending on the age of your kids, right? Like if it's basically just something to contextualize what kind of event is this? And how much control do you have on the event? Because like everybody understands that there are external things that happen in people's lives where you can't set the time of this program.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Okay, so moving on to our next question. This person had asked, once you've said no to an opportunity, how do you escape the inevitable FOMO or fear of missing out?
Oh, this one's hard. This is hard. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. You will get the FOMO. You just have to sit with it. The truth is that once you start saying no to things, that FOMO gets smaller because you end up filling that time not with nothing, but with something you'd rather be doing. Like it becomes like, instead of being overscheduled and like having this panic about like, am I missing out on something? You start to have like I am now enjoying the thing that I'm doing more, or I'm less stressed out about doing all these other activities. Sure, you're going to get the FOMO, but I'm telling you that later you is going to be like way more excited about living a stress-free life.
I think that's a good thing to highlight, is that not only if you're making these decisions using the criteria that Misty had laid out earlier, and you're really being honest and realistic about what you really want to do and what you really have to do versus what you're kind of guilted into or socially feel like you have to attend or something. Not only are you better able to like be present at the things that you are attending and really enjoy them without feeling guilty for the things that you said no to, but if you're making these calls and you're continually like, if the FOMO doesn't really ever go away or if it's building or something, then maybe re-examine your criteria and see if you're really being honest and clear with yourself about what you really want to do or what you're not, or if maybe you need to adjust that criteria or adjust how you're making those decisions so that you don't have those kinds of feelings. And I love what Min had put in the chat, which was JOMO, the joy of missing out. And I think that's, God, there's nothing that gives you that rush and feels quite so good as canceled plans at the last minute. But like doing it in a professional way and doing it in a responsible way, so you're not burning bridges or something, I've got to tell you, it's even better. I mean, this is truly must be what like that absolute rush really feels like. I've heard of things like the runner's high, and I've never experienced that, but I'm telling you that must be what it feels like, because it's amazing. And I would absolutely run long distances to get that feeling. Okay, so we sort of touched on this question a little bit earlier. This person wrote in saying, can you really say no to employers if the ask is within the scope of your job? Or do employees have more power here than we think? So you had talked a little bit about like the idea of maybe saying no, but, or like offering some kind of accommodation or a solution that's like kind of a middle ground. What if when this comes, like, does that answer, or does your response change at all when you're not really trying to say, okay, but let's do it this way, or okay, I'd prefer whatever? Does it change if you really just want a hard no?
You have, as a person, you have the power to say no. You don't think you do, because like we're taught like go along to get along, but if you see someone making a bad choice, right, you kind of want to stop them, right? Like if you saw someone running out into the street, you'd stop them. So if the reason you're saying no is, and even this is within your scope, is that like you see a better way of doing something, maybe it's more efficient, cost less, whatever, then you should totally articulate that. They may not still go with it, but you've at least said your piece, you know? And your no might be also denied with a no. You know, they also have the power to say no. Like, it's not like somebody says no first and that no is final. I'm just gonna like preface that. It's not like whoever gets their no in first wins. But articulating concerns that you have about something is super important. Also articulating your bandwidth. Like if you're just saying like, hey, whatever. But if you're articulating something where it's like, I don't think I'm the right person for this job, you can talk about why you think maybe this task should be somebody else's, or should it be a shared responsibility? Maybe there's something that your boss is not thinking about, like in terms of like, hey, I would love to decide this thing, but I don't feel like I have all the information. Like, I should probably work with this other team who's going to be consuming our stuff downstream, just to make sure that they can also make some decisions about it so that we're aligned and we don't have stress later. There's lots of reasons to say no or have concerns that you want to raise to your employer, whether it's bandwidth, scope, questions. Like, you should always feel comfortable of having a dialogue with your employer. And I feel like if you don't, you might want to think about that. Think about what you can do to facilitate that.
Excellent. Okay. So moving to our next question, this person had asked, how do you break the overcommitting cycle, especially if you are a new employee? I've done this while working at a few different companies, anywhere from 6 months to 1.5 years, hoping that I'll be promoted for my work ethic, but inevitably it just looks like they're taking advantage. Is there a signal that I'm missing, or am I just continuing a bad cycle, hoping that things will somehow turn out differently?
I recognize this. I recognize this in myself. Like, I will say yes initially before I learned to love no. I would say yes because I felt like if I said yes, like this is the path to really achievement, and like my employers are going to really value this about me. I don't know if anyone really told me this or how I see it now, but like I felt like what ended up happening was that I would periodically miss deadlines, and they didn't see me edit myself. So by saying yes to everything, I wasn't engaging. I wasn't engaging with each of the projects and thinking through like, is this the best way to do it? Should I be doing it like this? Is this best for the company? And I think that's the reason why initially maybe like I wasn't promoted in as fast as I thought I should be, was because I wasn't engaging critically with the projects that were coming towards me. So even though you want to say yes to everything, maybe you should talk about things a little bit more thoroughly with people before committing.
So I know that, like, from a personal capacity, I know that I do this a lot, especially when I start a new job, and it's not always intentional. Sometimes it just, you get that new job high and you really feel like you're going to be able to take all these things on, especially if you're in a situation where you maybe even don't have a real clear idea of what all of your duties are going to be as you're being trained. So even if you're not maybe a new employee, let's say that you've like been at the company for a while and maybe either didn't realize you were doing this or have now realized that you have already overcommitted yourself, how are you supposed to kind of like in a practical way walk that back or start having these conversations with whoever's, your direct report or your supervisor or your trainer or something like that?
So this is one of the things I think is super important, is that you develop a good relationship with your manager and talk about the kinds of projects that you want for your career. Like, as you develop, even as engineers develop, as everybody develops, we all have things that we specialize in, things that we feel like, you know, I'm particularly good at algorithms. Like if you want to talk deep data algorithms, it's my jam. I could talk for hours about them. And so like all of those projects I deeply love. And when I talk with my employer about that, they know like, hey, here's somebody who's really going to put in the work towards this project. And, you know, I get kicked a lot of those great projects. I'm super happy about it. However, there are other projects that maybe like I'm good at, but my heart isn't as there. And by saying to my employer, like, hey, this is how I'd like to edit my job. Like, not that I won't do it, but just like my preference is this. So that's a good way of communicating that. I've also seen things where it's like you've committed to tasks that weren't really related to your job description, and now you're doing 2 jobs. And you're overwhelmed because like you want to be the team player, but now you're doing 2 jobs and you're getting paid for 1. So you're exhausted and you're feeling the stress, but it's your saying yes that overcommitted you. And now the office really doesn't know how to place you. You know, are you this employee doing this job? Are you this employee doing this job? And your career path isn't clear. So what you have to do is, and it's going back to that editing concept. Like you have to edit and direct your career and have your trajectory. Like make your plan about what path you want and like start building that and start articulating that to your employers. And you're going to find that that's going to help you commit to the right things at the right time. Yeah.
All right. So moving on to this question, this person had asked, what are the best ways to respond if someone, like a boss, coworker, friend, is unhappy that you've said no? How can you ensure the relationship isn't negatively impacted?
People don't like to be told no. Like, you know, it's hard. It's like hearing a rejection, whether it's an idea or whether it's, you know, like, I can't go out to this, you know, like that's a hard thing to hear. But that's why I say contextualize, offer alternatives. Like you're giving them a reason and a why. Like it's not just like no with no explanation. Like that's one reason for the constructive no. But how can you ensure that the relationship is not negative? You can't. You can try to mitigate things, but truly you're never going to be able to manage another person's feelings. What you can do is you can be respectful, you can be honest, and you can be polite. But they might have hurt feelings. But if you're honest and respectful and you keep your commitments about other things, like it's going to show that you're a good, trustworthy person, and it's going to show you that you're dedicated to your work. But what you aren't going to do is like things that you don't believe in, or you're not committing to things that you aren't going to do well for people.
Thank you for calling that out. I'm reminded, especially within the confines of what you said, you know, like keep your responses, you know, respectful and polite. But I'm reminded powerfully of this thing I saw, of course, on Instagram, because, you know, now it's the source of all wisdom. But telling someone no, however, when you're to being told no, that does not mean that you should have said yes. And that was like one of those 1-sentence things where it's like, how is this my mind-blowing moment for the day? But it's very powerful to remind yourself that like the reaction that you get from that person, especially when you know you've taken those steps, like Misty said, to be, you know, as respectful as you can be, to be, you know, conscious of the other person and try to be, you know, handle this how you'd like someone to handle it with you. Even if you've taken all those steps and that person still reacts badly, that does not mean you were wrong to say no.
No.
People show you who they really are, especially when they're disappointed. And it might show you who that person really is as a friend. It might show you who that person really is as a boss, as a client. You know, and sometimes that's actionable information, sometimes it's not, but it, you know, it really does help you learn about that relationship and about how that person is going to be to keep working with or keep, you know, being friends with.
The other thing is that sometimes people have bad reactions initially, or like unexpected ones, because like their feelings are valid, because, you know, their feelings. And then they have a moment to sit and reflect and are fine and move past it. You know, like, so even if you see someone's like initial reaction, don't just like be like, well, that's that, you know, like give people some space, because hearing no is new to some people. And like, I was reading like this CEO was saying like he was so happy he fostered a culture where like a junior member of the team was able to come to him and articulate concerns he had with the decision, because he fostered a community at work that was able to communicate across boundaries and feel safe. So like, even if things are initially hard, you could be making giant progress, you know?
Absolutely. Okay. So this next question, I was really interested in this one because I liked how it kind of flipped the script a little bit from how we've been talking about this subject so far. So especially for people on the line that maybe are managers themselves or are, you know, in a position where they might be told no, how should companies or managers respond to individuals practicing what you're preaching today, saying no, especially and even when they do like you instructed and say, no, but blah, 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 like, no, how about if we did this, or I can't do that, but let's, you know, propose a solution and here's my proposal.
You want a culture at your office, at your workplace, where people feel comfortable to articulate when they have concerns. The people on the front lines usually have a very good idea about how things work deeply. And they're surfacing those concerns up to managers, up to like directors and other people, so that they're aware. They don't want the company to make missteps. So it's important that those things are heard. Now, there are people who are like total negative Nellies and like will say no to everything. That is a totally different scenario. And like, let us not talk about the edge case. But in terms of general employees, when they surface these concerns, that's a great way of saying like, hey, your opinion matters to me. We care about our employees. Thank you for articulating something where you felt like maybe the company should know this. Also, just because we say no doesn't mean that we have all the information. There are times that like I've said no as an employee, and then talking with other managers, hearing like, hey, here's more of this story and background. And you're like, oh, now that I know the background, I do think that your decision makes more sense and we should do that. You know, like you're going to hear that contextualization. And the important thing is that we all start working together and realize when we talk and we say no and yes, like we realize that we're having a dialogue, and dialogue is super important to making any achievement. If you aren't talking together, if you're always agreeing, that you're not listening to each other. Like if you're just hearing yes, 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 how are you sure that people are really listening? I don't know. Do you feel that way, Meg? Everybody?
Yes, absolutely. I think that when I'm, you know, especially when I'm new at a company, one of the things I kind of look for is like, what happens that first time I say no? And especially if the first time doesn't go well, I try and like kind of look for patterns to see like, well, is this you know, are they always going to be this kind of like holding a hard line and there's no room for, you know, for pushback or, you know, reinterpretation or moving of my goals or reorganizing of my priorities, that kind of thing. So this is absolutely like, you're telling me exactly what I want to hear, but not in a way that makes me feel like I'm not learning anything. It kind of is in a way that makes me realize that like, yeah, I'm actually picking up on something after listening to all of these chats. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. All right, so moving on to our next question. Okay, so this person said, I spend a lot of time thinking about delivery in industries under pressure that are, especially industries that are booming, like labor shortages. Saying no at work is a difficult negotiation for people in this environment. Any thoughts on saying no when it means that a task goes undone and there are resulting problems?
I've experienced it, right? Like I've been a consultant, and one of the things that you can end up doing is by saying yes and not being able to deliver, you've now just burned yourself super hard because now people can't trust you. Like you've diminished your own reputation. Like think about your reputation when you say yes to things that you can't deliver on. Either way, that task might have gone undone by you committing to it and not being able to deliver it. And sure, there are a lot of things that are booming right now, and there are labor shortages, but that doesn't mean that we should just solely be prisoner to those things, right? Because at the same time, we could be saying yes, 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 and just trashing our reputation, right? If we're not delivering the things that people need, it's better to work with clients and say, hey, I want to deliver all these things at the quality that you expect. I feel like this timeline is not going to work for these reasons, articulate the reasons clearly and concisely, and then give them an alternative timeline about when you think those things are realistic, and work with them on the priorities. Maybe part of it is not understanding the priorities that they have for the features that they need. And working with people will really help dial that in, and then you develop a plan together. And trust me, your clients love it when you develop plans with them, because it gives them agency, it gives them feedback, it makes them a part of the team, not just like this person out here and like you're just throwing something over the wall. You know, they aren't buying something out of a vending machine.
I think that's a really good way to put that. You're not buying something out of a vending machine. So this is, you know, it's not just a really sterile exchange where one person does one thing and the other person does another. Like that's like expecting you, I mean, to follow your analogy, it's like trying to buy something out of a vending machine, but not putting it in proper change, or not giving enough funds for the thing and then being mad at the vending machine for not delivering. You need to be very clear about what's necessary for that transaction to occur. And then if those things aren't met, here's the parameters that I can work within, and your solution is not, it's not going to help things get done. And it can be, like you said, it can be really difficult, especially when, that thing not getting done falls right back on your plate. But maintaining those clear boundaries, as well as being very communicative about what you need, can either help highlight maybe you have a misunderstanding about like what actually is needed to be done here. Maybe there's a shortcut to be taken that wasn't identified earlier, but your manager or whoever can actually like help identify that and help guide you to that shortcut. Like, okay, just this once, we'll do it without QAing, or whatever. But trying to be as proactive as possible about that puts you in a much more defensible position than after the fact being like, well, I didn't have time to do that. Mm-hmm. All right, so we are coming down to the end of our time here, but we do have time for one more question. So I do just want to get to this one last question here. This person said, I'd love guidance on how to say not now without shutting off future requests or opportunities. Is this possible when you can't give a good estimate of when you will have time for something? Because you don't want to keep somebody waiting indefinitely, but you don't want to burn that bridge.
Yeah, this is great. So what I typically do is, like, when I was consulting and I didn't know when I'd get done with a certain project, is that I would be like, hey, I'm super excited about the work that you're doing. Can I contact you as this other project is winding down? I'm not exactly sure when that will be, but I'd love to reach out to you and set up a time where we can meet and talk about if you still have these needs or if you have different needs. Because sometimes by then they've got like even more needs than you originally talked about, and it'll be an even bigger project. Also, establishing regular check-ins with somebody, like where you just meet maybe once a month and like see how they're doing, that's a great way to do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So as we kind of round out here, one of the last things I like to try and touch on, especially with our partner chats like today, is the fact that VideoAmp is hiring right now. So I'm putting that link again into the chat, so in case you didn't check it out earlier, where you can go click that link, you can go see VideoAmp's open roles. Like I said, click that follow button so that way you can be alerted when they post new roles or when they're going to participate in events like today, our virtual job fair, our mini summits that are happening periodically throughout the next year, all of that good stuff. So as you're doing that, and as people are interested in finding out more, so can you talk a little bit about the positions that VideoAmp is hiring for right now?
Oh yeah, so there are quite a few actually here. I'm just gonna, pardon me for looking away because I'm looking at the list. Principal full stack engineer, we've got director of engineering, principal data engineers, senior data engineers. We're looking for principal data scientists, director of engineering, director of enterprise solutions, senior director of enterprise solutions, account executive. We have quite a few open. And then I would always keep in touch. Like that is a great way of just knowing as new positions come down the pipeline.
Awesome. I am seeing that people are maybe having trouble with the links. They're working for me, so I'm going to try and share the link one more time, and hopefully you'll be able to get in there. But if you keep experiencing issues, please feel free to reach out to hi@powertofly.com. That's just hi@powertofly.com. I man that account, but that way I can make sure that we can address this and maybe escalate the issue to our dev team if that's something that needs to happen.
Yeah, and here is the VideoAmp careers page too.
Awesome. Thank you, Misty.
Thanks.
There we go. Okay, so let's get on to our next question here. What is your favorite part about working at VideoAmp?
Hands down the people. I love my team, like love them. I've had different positions on the same team. I've been a technical product manager. I've been an engineer. Like everybody is super great to work with. They are fun and smart and interesting. And I love working with the other teams as well. It's not just, I personally love data engineers, but like everybody I talk to and work with is just great. Like I have nothing but wonderful things to say about them. We've got some great industry leaders, just everything that they do. Like the people that all come to work at VideoAmp are just fascinating. It's really great to work with so many smart, fun people.
Excellent. All right, so then as our last question here, is there anything that anybody who's interested in applying needs to know, or maybe what the best way is to go about applying for a career at VideoAmp?
So that one I believe there's on that careers page, it indicates some ways, and I would follow that. But if you have, pardon me, if anybody has any concerns and would like to hit me up on LinkedIn directly, if you're having some issues contacting one of our recruiters, just let me know and I would be happy to make the introduction for you.
Excellent, thank you for that. And the one thing I will highlight, guys, is that if you do apply through PowerToFly, if you find the job opening via PowerToFly, that will, it does a couple of really cool things for you, but one of the things that it does do is that our CSM, the customer service manager who is attached to the VideoAmp account, does follow up on those applications. So it kind of, we have that extra layer of like functioning sort of like your friend at the company who's like, hey, like asking HR, like, hey, have you started looking at those resumes yet? Are you guys moving forward on that position? So it is one of those things that's really, really great to kind of take advantage of, because as a talent that, it kind of works to your advantage without you really having to do anything. And if you do go through us, or even if you don't go through us to apply, let us know. Let PowerToFly know if you get to a certain point with VideoAmp, or if you get hired, because we absolutely love to celebrate these kinds of things, these milestones. So please feel free to share that information with us. Like I said, you can always tag us on social media. We are at PowerToFly on basically every platform. So as we round out our time here, I just want to take a minute to say thank you so much to Misty for taking time out of your day to spend with us, to prepare for this session and answer all of our questions. It's really, really appreciated. So thank you so much. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we end our session today?
Well, thank you for having me. I had a blast. This was super great, and I loved meeting all of you. Your questions were amazing. At VideoAmp, we love working with PowerToFly. You guys are great. We've really had a great experience. And by the way, they do follow up. We have a great relationship with them. So always, like, any way that you can get to us. And if you don't apply through PowerToFly, but let us know that you did come to an event, because we would love to hear that. So either way, that we know that how we met you, that's super important. We really appreciate it. Thank you for coming out today. You can always hit me up in LinkedIn. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Misty. I'm going to share one more time the link so that you can, if you want to connect with Misty on LinkedIn, you'll be able to do that. And then the last thing I want to say to you all today is thank you so much to all of you for joining us today, spending time with PowerToFly and taking time out of your day to participate, and especially send the amazing questions that you sent in earlier. That is really helpful to us and makes sure that you all get as much as possible out of these events. So as we go through and do that, you know, and thank you for attending today. I do want to just encourage you to check out some of the upcoming events that we have going on. I have gone through and shared in the chat the link where you can check out our upcoming events. It's powertofly.com/career/live-chats. Let me grab it one more time and put it in here for you guys. And then as we go through, I just want to call out the fact that we do have a couple more events happening later on this week. There's that link right there for everybody. So later today, actually, or no, wait. Yeah, later today, sorry, it's starting now actually. We're having an office hour session on Personal Finance 101. So that's only a half-hour chat. You can come in and check out Lena Bahulakar's advice on personal finance. And then tomorrow at noon, we're going to have a lunch break session that starts at noon Eastern. I'll be there, so come spend your lunch break with PowerToFly. We're going to do our icebreaker stuff. It's really fun. And then at 1 o'clock tomorrow, we're going to be talking about how to make a good impression as a new hire. So that can be really important, especially if you are a remote new hire. We'll be talking about kind of the special challenges faced there. And then at 3 o'clock, we've got a live resume review with PowerToFly's career coach. So you can get free advice from Heather Cole. So please feel free to check out those upcoming events. And thank you so much for spending time with PowerToFly. I hopefully look forward to seeing most of you on upcoming chats this week and continuing on through the rest of the year. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.